Which are the names that you need to look out for as week one of the college football season comes hurtling toward us? We're going to tell you who we think is going to make an impact this season for Syracuse football. It's on Locked On Syracuse. It's right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte and Owen Valentine with you on this wonderful Thursday morning. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Today and this whole week, we've been talking Syracuse football training camp. Last week, too, because training camp is exciting and things are going on for Syracuse. If you haven't seen on Twitter or any website or our podcast, training camp's been good. We've been learning a lot more about the team, who's good, who's maybe not so good, who's going to rise up through the depth chart. And we're kind of getting a feel as to what the depth chart is starting to look like. But with that said, I think that this year, Syracuse does have the most starters returning of any ACC school with 17 guys coming back, which is very exciting. But even that being said, I still think that some names starting on the depth chart might not be ones that you've seen before. So I think we should run through it. We'll go position by position group here, and not every single one. Obviously, some of the names everywhere, like Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader. But we're talking about the guys who you maybe don't know the names of that are going to make an impact this season, or at least we think so. So let's start at the quarterback position. Honestly, I don't think we're going to see anybody other than Garrett Schrader. But if we do, it's going to be Carlos Del Rio Wilson. So honestly, quarterback is probably the lamest one here because it's so solidified. So I say we just move right on to running back. I don't know if you're cool with that. Go. If you want to go over your quarterbacks, go talk about Luke McPhail, man. Talk about him.
No, I was just going to say, can we consider Garrett Schrader's passing game a possible breakout player?
Oh, look at that. Maybe. If you want to take that route, go ahead. I am not falling down that pit.
I'm not saying it will be, but I'm just saying, it could have had some room to be improved. There's a lot more passing, it seems, in Robert and I's offense. Who knows? Maybe the emergence of the Syracuse passing game could be something that we return to and talk about at the end of it. So I'm going to throw that in, move to running backs. I think we're in agreement with the running back spot as who are maybe breakout guy could be behind Sean Tucker.
I like Juwan Price, who is the transfer from New Mexico State. Babers talked about him at the ACC kick. I've talked about LaQuint Allen too, because those are the two guys that are behind Tucker and that everybody knows the name of. Price, redshirt transfer. He's a redshirt sophomore. It's technically his fourth season in college football, while LaQuint Allen, a true freshman. I think Price could be good behind Tucker because, you've got look at what you had last year in the running back room. You had Abdul Adams, you had Jarvion Howard back, and I don't think anybody expected those guys to be back after testing the NFL waters. They came back to Syracuse and realized that Sean Tucker had kind of just left them in the dust. Markenzie Pierre, was he still there? I just love his name. I wanted to say it. Anyway, my point is, it's a radically different room this year than it was last year. And Juwan Price, who actually played at New Mexico State last season, ran for nearly 700 yards, 10 touchdowns on the year in independent ball, which is actually pretty impressive. He also caught the ball 26 times, 173 yards through the air. He's a multifaceted running back. People are sleeping on this guy because Tucker is the number one name, the 15th ranked player coming back to college football, according to ESPN. And he deserves all the credit in the world. I'm just saying, do not sleep on Juwan Price because I think he's going to be a valuable back as the backup.
Yeah, I 100% agree in this one. I think you got to go with the experience here with Juwan Price. Averaged 5 yards a carry last season. I also wouldn't be shocked to see him a little bit in the kick return game. He did some kick returning with New Mexico State, did decent from what I'm reading and what I saw in that. So maybe, there's a little bit of a chance for him to get his reps there. But I also see, this as an opportunity for, as much as I think people might say, give the ball to Sean Tucker every single play, every single down, let him do his thing. There are situations where might benefit from letting Sean take a breath and throwing a guy in. And I think Jawan Price is going to be a candidate that will allow him to take some time, maybe take a snap or two, and just stand on the bench, get some water, talk with somebody, get some information in a certain situation, and then come right back out. And it's going to help Syracuse in the long run, keeping Sean's legs fresh and maybe a little bit easier for him to stay healthy.
Yeah, and a guy that, I mean, a running back that actually has done something in Price,
Yeah.
who's a transfer. I mean, Abdul Adams transferred from, what was it, Michigan State, Oklahoma? Was it Oklahoma?
Was it?
I think
Why am I
I
drawing a
think it was
blank on
Oklahoma.
Abdul?
I'll look it up. But I think,
Yeah.
but my point is, like,
Yeah.
he transferred from some big school. Was it Oklahoma? Yeah, Oklahoma. And then just came, and he hadn't done a ton there. Like, he played 10 games, whatever, but like, he wasn't special. I'm not saying Jawan Price is Barry Sanders, but I think I have some faith in him. Anyway, let's move to the offensive line for a second and talk about what we could see on the offensive line. I think it's going to be pretty chalky. I don't think you're going to see a crazy amount. Next year is really the flip year. But you got your Bergerons, your Dakota Davises, Vetterellas, and Bleiches of the world that are going to be running things on the offensive line. Darius Tisdale in that mix as well. But I think there's room for Josh Iloa, Kalan Ellis, and Enrique Cruz to really make their mark in the snaps that the starters aren't on the field. This one, kind of like quarterback, though, we know those names. I don't know necessarily that there's somebody who's going to come out of the woodworks and be fantastic.
Yeah, Dino said he wants to get to his final 7. The way you were just talking, it could be a final 8. And I just think that there's, as you were saying, it is pretty much chalk with the O-line right now. You sort of knew who and, those names to look for coming into the year, and they've sort of, knock on wood, stayed healthy, looked apart, done what they were doing. It seems like they're rotating guys a lot, so that you're starting to see a little bit more, diversity in terms of where guys can play. I want to say it might have been Dakota Davis, who they were saying has been really working through like 3 different positions on the O line all through camp. It's tough to have an O line stay healthy the entire year. So I think, as you were saying, with guys like Josh Iloa or a guy like Enrique Cruz, you could definitely see them in, for a game or two, or for some certain snaps, or for a quarter, whatever it might be. I think they both seem like they can sort of do the part. I know I've been hearing that like Matthew Bergeron is sort of taking Cruz under his wing, so that would help
Yeah.
in terms of Enrique Cruz being able to jump in. I think they're both very capable. Obviously, you want those 5 guys that you sort of have come to expect going into this year to be healthy and be in there, but I don't think that's the end of the world, maybe, if depending on who. Obviously, I look at Bergeron and think that's different than some of these other guys. But it might not be the end of the world if, Iloa or Cruz or someone else has to jump in for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. So O-line chalk. Get to the receivers next, but right after this PSA break, don't drink and drive, people. It is bad. Okay, and I'm about to tell you why. You're hanging
Don't
out
do
with
it.
some friends, and you're putting back a few drinks. Few becomes too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you thinking of calling for a ride? Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of drunk driving. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. Drive sober or get pulled over. That's not all, though. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. The ultimate college football preview is here. A 7-episode preview with college experts, local team experts, and Odyssey college football insiders. It's everything you need to be ready for for the college football season in one spot. Search for Ultimate College Football Preview on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Back here on Locked On Syracuse, I'm Matt Bonaparte. That, my friend, is Owen Valentine. We're talking about the names you might not know already who are going to make an impact on Syracuse's football season this year. We're going to the wide receivers right now. For me, the wideout room, maybe outside of the defensive line, is the weakest on the team, which is why that makes it an exciting one to talk about for this episode, because you actually might get to see some of these guys. We know about guys like Arande Gadsden. We saw him play. We didn't really get to see him play a lot last year, but we saw him play a little bit. I wasn't impressed, but some people are, hopefully this time around. And maybe he proves me wrong. The two guys I'm really excited to see this season is Isaiah Jones, one, if he can get healthy and then come back, he might get some decent playing time. And then two, the redshirt freshman, Umari Hatcher, number 17. I'm looking for him to be making plays. This is a guy who was kind of hyped up in the recruiting process, a guy that Syracuse really wanted their hands on. They got him, a 3-star out of Woodbridge, Virginia. He's really fast. He's 6'3", so he's got the body. He got offers from Indiana. He got offers from Penn State. I mean, this is a real player, and I'm just hoping that he can finally make an impact this season. And with a wide receiver room that's so thin, like Syracuse's is, with only 3 guys who you really know coming back in Courtney Jackson, Anthony Quealy, and Damian Alford, I think there's room for him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't like that you bashed my pick in Arande Gadsden before I
I'm
even
not
got
an
to talk
Arande
about
guy,
him.
but I want him to prove me wrong.
You know, I think he sort of strikes me as the perfect candidate to possibly be a breakout guy, and that we saw him a little bit. And it seemed like he might have been starting to get a little bit going in the spring. And now I think it might have been him in a video where Deuce Chestnut called him out and said, you know, you're getting all these reps because you don't quite have it. But I sort of took that as they're giving him these reps because they might think he could be the answer, and you know, a guy that can come in. I like what he can do. I think maybe mentally I might be too high on him, but I think that's what, you know, I'm looking for in a breakout player, is someone that I might be overconfident in. And even if he's, you know, doesn't quite get to that level, I might be all right with it. But I do like Gadsden. I think he could possibly be that guy. Um, I look at these wide receivers. I think, you know, Isaiah Jones was definitely a candidate. We did see in Dino's presser this week that there's a chance that he's back week 1, which is a good sign, because I think he can be a contributor. So I go between those two. Do I gamble on the guy that you bashed before we even talked about, or the guy that's
Didn't
currently
bash
hurt?
him. Just
I
said I
know.
didn't have that much faith in him.
All right. All right.
The
I
other guy
think,
you got to think about, I think, is the transfer DeMarcus Adams, who
yeah.
played at Florida State as well as Florida Atlantic. I think some people are getting hung up on the fact that he played corner at FAU, mixed in with some wideout. He could be a decent slot, and I'm not saying I'm expecting him to go out there and be like Sean Riley, but he's fast and he's small and he can move, and if he can catch the football, it doesn't really matter after that.
Yeah.
So that's another guy to keep your eye on.
Look at that. I mean, a lot of defensive ideas in there with Adams, and then Dom Foster, right? Didn't Dom so he gave the whole "Hey Dino, I don't want to play corner anymore. Let me be a
Yeah, I
receiver."
think
And
so. Maybe
he's
something like
been,
that.
I don't know how well he's done at receiver, but he's still at receiver at this point, listed as a receiver. So he's doing enough to stay involved in that conversation and not have the whole defense to offense switch written off, which I think could be a good sign. I don't really think he'll play all too much this year, but maybe moving forward, that could be something that happens. Still a fun story.
Yeah, totally.
Do we have a tight end?
Um, Tight end. I mean, that's such a weird position group this year because like
Max
you're,
Mang?
it's like Max Menger, Stephen Mahar. I mean, Chris Elmore is going to be the first string guy, but I doubt anybody throws him a pass all year. So Max Mang and Stephen Mahar are your guys, but I don't think Syracuse has abandoned using the tight end. So I don't know how much I can offer you in terms of what the tight end room is going to do. Blockers.
Yeah, I don't really know.
So let's move to the defense.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
defense is a
Thank
lot
you.
more exciting anyway. Let's start on the defensive line, which is it's honestly the defensive line is fun because everybody's an option because they're so thin. You have your three guys in Okechukwu, Lockett, and Linton at the front, but Jatius Gear is a guy that Stephen Bailey came on the pod a few episodes ago and talked to us about potentially making a difference this season, which I think will probably be my pick here. But Elijah Fuentes Cundiff is also a name that might be doing. And he also mentioned Dennis Jaquez Jr., true freshman who could be making some kind of difference. But this defensive line, anybody goes down and it's anybody's ball game, right? So Jatius Gear and those other names I mentioned have a chance to make an impact probably day one because those guys can't play every snap. So we're going to see how Syracuse attempts to defend against the run. They're going to have to get creative probably because I don't know that they have the talent to do it. But hey, maybe these guys come out and surprise everybody.
Yeah, I think I see Jatius Gear as you were saying, that the guy that will most likely be your sort of breakout guy on the D line. You know what you've got in terms of, your three starters, but your three starters aren't getting through, every snap by any means. And I think Gear, at least I think we agree on this in our eyes, is, that first guy that's going to rotate in there and take some snaps. And I think that's what
I do
Stephen Bailey
believe
was
that, yeah.
getting at as well. I remember when, he committed and, you sort of get this idea. I was excited to see, a
Three-star.
guy like him with decent size, right? Being able, and I think he's pretty mobile, honestly. I think he could be a presence in the backfield and someone that can sneak through a couple of times. And we might not be doing it every single play or every single game, but I think he might have some big moments where he is going to be able to use, his a little bit of mobility at a decent size to get into the backfield and get a running back in the backfield or maybe grab a sack here and there. I think he can definitely be that guy that could be our breakout sort of D lineman and see where it goes from there.
And the offer sheet for him was incredibly impressive, but some decent teams in there. Georgia Tech, fellow ACC school, UCF, Memphis, Kansas State in there. So some decent teams looking for him.
Yeah.
Liberty, but Syracuse ends up getting him and maybe makes a difference this season. Into the D-backs, because, the linebacking core, Makai Mason's probably your only guy. I don't know how big you are on Anwar Sparrow and Leon Lowry, but Makai Mason's my guy there.
Yeah, I hate agreeing, but I might have to. I
But
don't.
also the new name, sorry that I cut you off just now,
No, you can.
but the new name that people are talking about pretty much this week, and if you've been on Twitter, you might have seen it. Derrick Mcdonald has been the new name that people are throwing in to the linebacking core. Guys wearing number 81. And he's rocking a haircut straight out of the 70s. But he's looking like a player who might be making a difference. He's a redshirt freshman, appeared in 2 games last year, one at NC State, but it was a redshirt. He I think he could be making a bit of a difference here as well. 6'4", 225. So he's a big guy. And maybe trying to take the reins from this linebacking group after guys like Michael Jones, Stephon Thompson, and Marlowe Wax leave. Now, you might be thinking, I kind of know that name, but I don't know why. And maybe it's because he's wearing number 81. This guy was recruited as a tight end, but is now listed as a linebacker. So he, like Dom Foster, has made the switch from one side of the ball to the other. And I think with a body like a tight end, you could probably make a pretty darn good linebacker. He's put on about 20 pounds since he got to Syracuse. He was 6'4", 200-pound tight end when he got there, now put on about 20 more pounds, and he's a linebacker.
Yeah, I'm scrolling Twitter right now looking for a little bit of footage on him, and it's funny to sort of see, I'm watching early camp videos and a little bit of progression and just sort of him, getting completely used to it and a little bit more comfortable. But I definitely like, him putting on a little bit of size and switching over, and I think that mindset definitely helps. the two-way mindset and to be able to have the insights from one side of the ball, bring them to the other side definitely helps. I would be interested to see what he ends up doing this year. Is he going to be able to do enough to be a guy that's getting in there a decent amount, or is he just going to be in sort of, lesser situations and lesser snaps? I don't exactly know, but I like, what I'm seeing in a couple of videos that I've scrolled and seen. And maybe he could, if, an unfortunate situation ends up happening, start getting an enhanced role or an elevated role. But as of now, I do like the growth and sort of it seems like he is picking things up a little bit and having that transition, but I don't know exactly where everything will end up for him.
Cool. To the D-backs, you've got a lot of names here. And we talked about yesterday a couple of the guys who might be taking over if guys like Jason Simmons don't play. Talked about Braylon Oliver and Elijah Clark. Elijah Clark, for YouTube viewers, yesterday I talked about his money chain that he was wearing in his Cuse.com picture.
Put it
I'll
up.
flash it on the screen. I mean, look at this guy. I already love him. He's already the man. He reminds me of Paris Ford, the safety from Pitt from like 2 years ago. Just the swagger that he carries. It's awesome. Okay, but the
I
guy
love
that
that picture.
now, it is fantastic. The guy that today, and we're recording this on Wednesday, so today is yesterday for the listeners, that has been making headlines, or at least Twitter headlines, is Jeremiah Wilson, who everybody is talking about. Dino talked about him in his press conference from a couple days ago and said that he's one guy who's climbing up the rungs in the depth chart already. So he's fantastic. And we saw a great video from Stephen Bailey's Twitter account of a one-handed interception. I apologize for audio listeners, but I just have to play it for the YouTube watchers because it's so good. So let's take a look. That gets better every time I watch it. It is so good. And he gets both feet in the end zone. Like, it's fantastic. For the audio listeners, if you haven't seen it, basically Carlos Del Rio Wilson throws a fade to his receiver on the right side of the field that Jeremiah Wilson is covering. He stays on him the whole time and then just jumps up and absolutely Odell Beckham Jr.'s the ball out of the air. He keeps both feet in the end zone. It's an immaculate play.
And it's by no means a bad throw either. Just an unreal fantastic play.
He's great. So I love that from Jeremiah Wilson. Hopefully we see him a little bit. I was saying before the podcast to Owen, I wish he was like a defensive lineman instead, or not a D-back. They don't need D-backs. They need D linemen. Or wide receivers or something. So
no, with hands like that, maybe.
I was about to say maybe he makes the switch just like McDonald and Foster did. But perhaps not.
I've been hearing a lot today, last 24 hours. I've seen his name come up in, a ton of things that I'm reading, listening, whatever it might be. I know in the press conference, Babers was saying how, he was just consistently picking the ball off in practice, in scrimmage, in whatever it might be. He's going to be good. And I like to say this is, the next generation of DBU at this point, right? Get him in there. They'll figure some things out. He'll get some snaps this year. He'll play I don't think he's not playing. He's going to be in the game. You'll see him. And then next year slots into an elevated role. I think this is the guy that you're going to start to see sprinkles of this year. But unfortunately for him, being behind Garrett and Deuce, you're not going to see as much time as if you were in another position group, as you were saying, but you're going to see the sprinkles, you're going to see the flash, and you're going to be excited for maybe this is I don't know, we're cracking the curtains open. You can kind of see him this year. Maybe this is a premature breakout year because it might be the 2023 season full breakout year for Jeremiah Wilson.
Yeah, totally. And he kind of gets the same treatment that like Garrett Williams did in the 2020 season, where he kind of got to play behind Trill Williams and Andre Sisco and Afatu Melifonwu. And not only did he get to learn a lot from those guys, but he also, in turn, didn't have to cover the most difficult receivers to cover. So when Afatu Melifonwu was locking down Joseph Ngata against Clemson or whatever, they had to throw towards Garrett Williams, and a lot of times those were picks. So
Picked off Trevor Lawrence, didn't he?
He did. So maybe that turns into something for Jeremiah Wilson. But yeah, our final point here, we're going to special teams. I'm just gonna this does. You don't have to, if you don't have anybody, you don't have to chime in. I am making a campaign for Max von Marburg. I would like him to be the punter. And some people are saying, Matt, is it because he's from somewhere called Wagga Wagga? Yeah, all right, it is. And I think that's cool. He's from New South Wales, Australia. Went to St. Mary Macalop College's Wagga. Come on.
Oh, my.
You're telling me they don't teach punting in Wagga Wagga? I love this guy, and I'd like him to punt. Also, James Williams, if you can't get it done, man. I mean, we all saw what happened last year. He was punting the ball backwards. He was punting the ball sideways. The man could not get the job done. Please, Dino, no more specialty punts. Just kick the ball on the other side of the field.
Yes.
I don't know if you've got somebody, but that's all I got.
If I've got somebody in the punter unit that is my breakout player, no. Okay. No, I don't have anyone else.
Well, let me read this ad real quick because I forgot about it. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. And with that said, we bid you adieu. So thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. Go get more on the ACC by making Locked On ACC your second listen every day. Host Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On take you across the ACC in 30 minutes. Make Locked On ACC your second listen. That's Locked On ACC. Owen and I will see you tomorrow, where we get closer and closer to hopefully a depth chart, and maybe we just maybe get an interview for you tomorrow, but we'll see. See ya.